Casey Becker was born sometime around 1979 or 1980. She seems to be the only child in her family. Casey was a fan of horror movies, just like you, the viewer. I think this was an intentional choice. If audiences could relate to Casey, they too could feel the fear that she feels. Her favorite horror movie is Halloween, which also has to be intentional, since Halloween is one of the most popular horror movies. She also likes the first Nightmare on Elm Street, but thinks the rest suck. Casey attends Woodsboro High School, where she had English first period with Mrs. Tate. At some point, she had a short relationship with her classmate, Stu Macker. Not much is known about their time together. I'm not sure if she became interested in horror as a result of their relationship, or if their relationship was a result of their shared interest in horror. I'm gonna go with the latter because she seems to still love horror after moving on from him. Casey is not the most loyal girlfriend. She always seems to be moving on to the next boy, so she dumps Stu to get together with Steve Orth, who according to her is big, plays football, and will kick the shit out of you. I mean, he doesn't look that big to me, but he does have a Letterman jacket, so I am inclined to believe that he really does play football. One night in October 1996, Casey has plans to watch a couple of scary movies with Steve, but she receives a call that changes those plans. To learn who really killed Casey, stick around to the end of this video. This video is sponsored by Audible. Welcome to Horror History. Just go ahead and type your name into the comments because I want to know who I'm looking at. In today's lesson, I'll be analyzing the first Scream victim. Not chronologically, I believe that honor goes to Maureen Prescott, but the first victim of the first movie, Ms. Casey Becker. Despite only appearing in one sequence, Casey is easily one of the most iconic Scream characters. Go to a screening and you'll see countless women dressed up in white pullovers and blonde bob cuts. Bonus points if she's covered in blood. Casey's psychological reaction to her stalkers is interesting, so let's take a look back to that fateful night. It is a foggy October night when Casey is preparing for an evening of horror flicks with her boyfriend. She receives a phone call from an unknown caller and lets him know that it's a wrong number. Casey is dressed in all white, or at least near white, from her bleach blonde hair to her light faded jeans. She represents a blank canvas that any horror fan could project themselves onto. As a blank canvas, she's almost tempting the killer to do a little painting. A little splatter painting in red, to be more specific. The mystery caller calls back to talk, and she's amused, but hangs up on him to start some popcorn on the stove. Since Scream is a genre commentary in the form of an actual horror movie, it makes sense that Casey is preparing some popcorn at the beginning. It's exactly where we might have been a couple of minutes ago before we started watching Scream, so when she gets into trouble, it subconsciously puts us on edge as well, and it makes us share her fear. We even see the VHS player's blue screen on her TV, which if you don't remember or aren't old enough is what you saw before putting a tape in. This makes us feel as if we, the audience, and Casey are both going into a horror movie. The mystery man calls again, and now she's genuinely curious about who it is. I think she most likely believes that somebody that she knows is messing with her, so she humors him and tells him about her evening plans.
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
We can see during this interaction that she's smiling. She's amused by this mysterious caller, and she's kind of flirting with him. She tells him her favorite is Halloween, and guesses that his might be A Nightmare on Elm Street. He asks if she's got a boyfriend, and she lies and says no. One of the most well-known and long-standing tropes in horror is the idea that promiscuity can lead to death. We don't see anything graphic here, but we do eventually learn that she lied about being single. Since Casey was most likely targeted by Stu as revenge for their breakup, her infidelity serves as the offense that earns her the spot as the first target in the movie. When she asks why he wants to know her name, he says,
I want to know who I'm looking at.
This gets her spooked, and we can see her attitude change. She gives him the cold shoulder and hangs up. When he calls a fourth time, she's really getting scared, and we can hear it in her voice like she's about to cry. This is when her defensive instincts kick in. When the caller rings her a fifth time, she raises her voice to try to intimidate him, but he just yells over her, threatening to gut her like a fish if she hangs up on him again. This is not her getting annoyed. This is her using an artificial sense of anger to cover up what she's really feeling. Fear. You can tell by what she does next. She leaves her burning popcorn behind to go lock all of the doors. Her response is interesting because up to this point, she has no proof that the unknown caller is even telling the truth. At this point, it could be a prank call by somebody miles and miles away. So Casey's reaction shows how insecure she really is. Maybe the same kind of insecure that goes from one boyfriend to the next with no gap in between. She threatens to call the police, but the voice on the phone tells her that they'd never make it in time. This is the first confirmation that her caller maybe knows where she is, and this is where the tears start flowing.
What do you want?
To see what your insides look like.
Next, the doorbell rings, and I think for the first time her fear is justified, because we now know that there is somebody outside of her house, though we don't yet know for sure that it's her creepy caller. She yells out,
Who's there?
And as she's grabbing the phone again to call the police, the caller calls back to scold her, saying you should never yell who's there in a horror movie. Now it's almost 100% confirmed that the person she's been speaking with is outside of her house. The killers could have started with the doorbell, but it wouldn't have been as effective as torturing her through the slow realization that the strange voice on the other end of the line is no distant stranger. Scream was directed by Wes Craven, the same man who brought us A Nightmare on Elm Street and The People Under the Stairs. You can learn more about Wes Craven in his biography, which is available for listening on Audible. Audible offers an incredible selection of audiobooks across every genre, including horror. You'll also discover exclusive Audible originals from top celebrities, renowned experts, and exciting new voices in audio. It's a new year, you've probably got some new resolutions, some new goals, right? Whether it's learning a new skill, making a lifestyle change, or just reading as many scary stories as possible, there is probably an Audible title that can help you with that goal. Members get a free title every month for keeps. Of course, podcasts are just free. I'm gonna keep you guys posted on what I'm reading this year, so for the Audible members in my audience, we'll have a little audio book club every now and then. You guys can leave a comment and let me know what you've been listening to. If you want to be a part of this exclusive club, all you gotta do is visit audible.com/CZsWorld or text CZsWorld to 500-500. You'll find that link in the description, audible.com/CZsWorld. Casey's evening continues to get worse as her options for survival dwindle. She screams over the phone that her boyfriend will arrive any second.
He's big and he plays football and he'll kick the shit out of you!
That's one of the best lines ever in terms of acting. I get goosebumps every time.
I'm getting scared. I'm shaking in my boots. His name wouldn't be Steve, would it?
He instructs her to find Steve, bloodied up and tied to a patio chair, and her first instinct is to go out and help him. But the voice on the phone advises against it. She's forced to agree to play a game to save Steve's life, and the game is horror movie trivia. She gets the first question correct, a warm-up question about the killer in Halloween, despite freezing up at first in her hysteria. The second question asks her for the name of the killer in Friday the 13th, to which she quickly shouts Jason, which he deems incorrect because Mrs. Voorhees is technically the killer in the original Friday the 13th. However, I feel like this isn't really a fair question. He asked her to name the killer in Friday the 13th. He did not say the movie Friday the 13th, he just said Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th is also the name of the franchise, and I'd say that Jason is the killer of the Friday the 13th franchise. Casey is not given time to make this argument though, and she's forced to watch Steve brutally get taken out. The third and final question asks,
What door am I at?
Strangely, now that we know that there were two killers, there's a good chance that she would have been technically correct if she had just answered. I'm guessing one of them would probably have been posted at each door, but whatever answer she gave, the opposite door would be busted down. This would be their way of ensuring that she got the last question wrong. A fellow creator named Zach Cherry actually did a really cool video where he mapped Billy and Stu's hypothetical positions outside of the house throughout the entire scene to try to answer that question. Who actually ended her life?
We have to have both of the killers on either side of the house. If they were both on one side, as people have suggested, then Casey could easily run out the opposite door, like not knowing where they are. There is no right answer, obviously, because they're each at one door.
But Casey refuses to answer the final question, which makes sense because answering the questions didn't work in her favor before, and now she's trying a new tactic. As a result, the killer at the back door, which is most likely Stu, throws a chair through and breaks into the house, sending Casey running to the kitchen to arm herself with a knife. She actually sees Ghostface passing through and most likely heading to the front door to let his accomplice in. I think this shows that despite her shortcomings in trivia, her next move is kind of intelligent. Her attackers have made it very clear to her that this is a horror movie and she is their victim. A typical horror movie victim would probably run out the front door where there would have been somebody waiting for her, but she doesn't do that. She stays in the house. She's subverting their expectations of what goes on in a horror movie. This is a preview of things to come for us as the audience of Scream, a movie that constantly challenges the status quo of the genre. Casey sees her parents' car approaching and she sees Ghostface skulking around in the kitchen. In the Zach Cherry video, he suggests that Billy went upstairs and this is Stu searching the kitchen. I agree with most of his version of the events, but here's the thing. His entire thesis relies on the idea that when Stu goes to the front door, he lets Billy in, which we know because when Casey's parents get back, the door is left open. And then Billy goes up and Stu stays down. We never see this on camera. I feel like they just as easily could have done the opposite. Stu could have gone up and Billy could have stayed down. So from a positioning standpoint, it's basically 50-50 on who the killer is. I'm also not convinced that either of them even goes upstairs, because after she sees this, the next time she looks into the house, she sees this. Ghostface with his back to the window, and then he he suddenly whips around and spots her. To me, this looks more like one of them was turned away from the window to talk to the other. And then when Casey appeared at the window, she was spotted, and then the other one said something along the lines of behind you, and that's what caused the guy by the window to spin around so quickly like that. But CZ, this is an analysis of Casey Becker. Why are you analyzing Ghostface? Because what happens next changes how I have to look at Casey's final moments. After being spotted, she runs out of the house barefoot, but Ghostface quickly catches her, sticks a knife through her chest, and proceeds to strangle her. Still, she manages to fight back by kicking him off of her. It's actually really impressive. Both Stu and Billy are over 6 feet tall to her 5'4", and she sends him flying back. Just then, Casey's parents are returning home, but in a Halloween 2 moment, she isn't able to call out to them. But I think this has more to do with her vocal cord being damaged when she was choked. They go inside, and she struggles to get to the front porch where her attacker pins her down. At this point, she knows she has no chance to survive, so instead of fighting back with the last of her energy, she reaches up to remove the mask. I think she knows this wasn't a random attack, because at this point it's pretty clear that it was someone who's familiar with her house and its layout, and somewhat familiar with her, enough to know that she would have been home alone and her boyfriend was on the way over, so she might as well learn who was after her before it's all over, to satisfy her curiosity. A lot is made of her reaction to seeing this face. To me, this is not a face of surprise, but one of recognition. I believe Stu is the one to deal the finishing blow. You can map out their routes through the house or analyze her expression all you want, but to me, it always had to be Stu who would have wanted dibs to get revenge on his disloyal ex-girlfriend. The girl he most likely spent nights enjoying horror movies with would become the victim of one. She doesn't actually die right away when he stabs her on the porch, so her mom goes inside and actually hears Casey die over the phone.
Oh my god, I can hear it!
It was kind of a missed opportunity, actually. If she had just said the name of her killer when she heard her mom's voice on the phone, the police could have focused their investigation much more. Casey's corpse is gutted and hung up in a tree. 5 years later, and I'm still not allowed to show that kind of imagery on YouTube. Casey's death leaves behind a legacy. She becomes sort of an icon of the Woodsboro murders. Her death scene would be fictionalized as the opening of the movie Stab in 1998, which is based on the events in Woodsboro. In 2010, Casey's story would be adapted to the big screen again in Stab 6, which is more loosely inspired by the end of Ms. Becker's life. Scream is iconic because of its ability to use classic slasher movies as the basis for the tropes that it satirizes. Drew Barrymore, who plays Casey, was the biggest name talent on the film. The movie poster is literally just her face, yet she's barely in the movie. This makes her early death much more shocking. It's basically the same trick pulled by Alfred Hitchcock when he, spoiler alert for a 60-year-old movie, killed Janet Leigh very early on in his 1960 film Psycho. There are also some parallels to Halloween, where 2 unnamed parents return from a night out to find their teen daughter stabbed to death. Remember, Halloween is the movie that is most heavily riffed on in Scream. It's the film that they all watch at the party, and many of its tropes play out during that party. Drew Barrymore reprised her role in 2020, sort of, for a short on YouTube about what it would be like if she had never died. It looks as if she's aged like a couple years maybe. I mean, if they ever show more of that night in a future Scream movie or something, I bet she could just step right in and play the teenage Casey. Casey Becker was a horror fan who found herself in the shoes of one of her Scream queens. I mean, she wasn't wearing shoes, but you get the idea. Her loose attachment in her romantic relationships was a sign of her personal insecurity, and it also probably got her targeted as the first in a line of teenagers to meet their fate in Woodsboro. Let me know in the comments what other Scream characters you'd like to see covered here on Horror History. There's definitely more Scream in the pipeline, so remember to subscribe to CZsWorld or I'll gut you like a fish, and I'll see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive. Get vaccinated. It's easy.